What on earth is a Gibson Flying V-K? We're gonna find out. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, if you thought this early 90s Flying V that we documented in this episode that had the gaudy 58 Gibson logo on it with the 67 body was kind of cool, I think you're gonna like this new one that I purchased from a viewer of the show who lived in Canada. Because this is a further amalgamation of just blending all the specs. So, here it is, the Flying V-K. It probably doesn't look all that different. It's got a cherry finish. I mean, it's got the vibrola, and it's a Custom Shop Flying V, which you don't find too many of those in the early 2000s. Usually you see this style. It's the 67 Gibson USAs. And then in 2002, we had the introduction of the Flying V Faded series. So most Flying Vs that you find in this era are not custom shops. So that's kind of what made me want to pick this thing up to document it, because it is a custom shop, but here's where the K comes from in the name. It has a Korina body. That's right, the legendary tone wood as far as Gibson is concerned, where they only use it on very select models and they charge ridiculous premiums for it, even though manufacturers like Reverend actually use it on every single guitar. Now there's varying qualities of Korina out there, as well as white and black limba variations, but this one has the Korina body and neck and has all 67 specs. So if you don't know what that means, let me fill you in. So this is the original Korina Flying V, first introduced to the public around 1958. It has very broad shoulders where the neck meets the body. It's a string-through design. It had a rubber bumper on the side, so if you wanted to sit with it traditionally, it could help you with that. And of course, the big gaudy Gibson logo on the headstock, which is just ultimately cool. Albert King was very famous for using a V like this. But those things were just way too darn futuristic for most people in the late 50s, but Gibson decided to try them again in 1967. But they more streamlined the design. They moved the output jack being separate from the pickguard down here to on the pickguard itself. We now have a larger pickguard in general. It covers this half of the guitar as well. Instead of using pickup rings, it's actually within the pickguard. The construction in general in this area definitely changed a lot, and we no longer had the cool string through design. We also got a regular truss rod cover that said Gibson instead of any type of badge. But you've got people like Hendrix that made those things famous. Now you could also add the 83-84 Flying V style to get the big three, but for today's video you don't need to know about these alder-bodied weirdos. I use that term affectionately. So now that we've got all that out of the way, I think you understand what just makes this one special. So this was a limited edition run done around 2001. I really couldn't find any information on this, except for how few of them were actually out there. So having that cherry stain over top of the Korina body kind of makes it hard to see the wood grain, but at least it's not like the Heritage Series ones that are ebony finish or white where you can't see the grain at all. This one, definitely on the back, you can see all the beautiful Korina wood grain. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, a colored finish as well as being able to see all the wood grain. But as of the time of recording this, to get a guitar like this out of the custom shop made out of mahogany, it's $5,500 brand new, because you get the cool 67 style trim and all the other nice custom shop appointments. So to get them to do a custom Korina one, if they would even do it, easily at least $8,500. Now generally, you can do a little bit better than that on the used market for these. Also around this era, there were some Korina SGs made if you want to check those things out. So it just seemed around this time, Gibson had some Korina, they wanted to do some interesting stuff, and we got these things birthed. I don't know how many they did as far as this particular Flying V run, but I haven't seen too many of them on the market, so I wouldn't imagine there's that many. But it looks like this one is complete with COA, as well as all the other good case candy that you got in this era, including a cable, the polishing rag, and all the other good stuff. Man, I miss having good case candy with custom shop stuff. But it was a little bit before the custom shop cases were created, so it's the same stuff that Gibson USA was using. So to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside our little red friend here, there were a few surprises. So starting with our pickups, it's all within the pickguard, so we have to remove that to see them, which also includes removing your bridge. But I got a good chuckle out of this. There's just a random sponge back here. Now the reason for that being put there is it helps stabilize the pickup. I'll show you that here in a second. But we're rocking a Burstbucker number 2 in the neck and a number 3 in the bridge, which gives us readings of 8.32 k ohms in the bridge, 8.06 in the neck, and 4.09 in the middle for fun. But here's what I was talking about with the stability. On humbuckers mounted within a pickguard, instead of having a pickup ring around them, you see how much this pickup moves? That annoys some people when they anchor their hand on it. So by adding that sponge on the back, it helped with that a little bit. Now, there's many ways you can do that. You can stuff it full of foam. Some guys just go as far as actually putting a pickup ring around here. There's many different choices. Do I believe that was factory? Probably not, but you never know until you tear apart a whole bunch of these things. But anyways, as far as our controls, we have our volumes on the outside, one for each pickup, and a master tone, partnered by a 3-way selector switch and our output jack on the front. As far as the wiring, looks like you've got Gibson branded pots. It's very basic stuff in here. Here's the actual cavities if you're interested in checking them out. They are squared off. Then we've got just a random mystery hole right there. I vaguely remember seeing that before in a different Flying V that we had just talked about. But 2001 was the first year for the historic 67 style Flying V to be reissued. So this is a first year example. I didn't know that until I did a little bit more research as I was tearing it apart. So that's the true reason why you didn't see too many of these. So the bridge is a full-on proper wire retainer Gibson ABR1. That's what you're paying the big bucks for. And then the really cool Vibrola. It looks cool. Is it the best in function and tuning stability? No, but it's part of the 67 aesthetic. The way it works is you have 3 securing screws right here. And then this metal bar has the ball end of the string and you just kind of bend the metal. Melody Makers used a very similar style one. But I was really hoping we'd see Bear Korina somewhere on this, but we just don't. Unless you count like right here, where the trem system is sitting on top of the body. And you can just barely see some of the natural finish going through there. But you could also find natural versions of this. Most of them that have surfaced were cherry for whatever reason, but I did find at least one photo of a natural one. So I think since cherry is a very traditional finish on these, and being the whole first year of the introduction, I think they were just looking for a way to kind of spice it up as well as offer regular reissues of it. So I'm not really sure if they would ever make another run of these. But moving on from our Korina body, we have the Korina neck with probably the nicest rosewood fretboard that I have ever seen. It's so dark and chocolatey smooth, but at the same time, do you see this? We have darker streaks within this really dark rosewood fretboard already. A very nice dark uniform look, but you also have a little bit of character within it. It's got lots of nice wood grain too. Now we do have a few weird anomalies. It kind of looks like dried glue. I tried to clean it off. I was unsuccessful. I don't necessarily feel a difference, but you can also see a few areas around some of the frets that also look like that. So I don't know, maybe it's just something to do with this board, but it was something I noticed. But we've got 22 medium jumbo style frets, our acrylic dot inlays. Nothing funny going on with our scale length, 24 3/4. I'm sure it's supposed to be a 12-inch fretboard radius. However, on my gauge, it actually feels closer to 10. It looks like we've got about a 12-degree headstock pitch. But as far as the neck itself, pretty skinny at the nut width, 1.57 inches. Stays very thin, 0.98 by the 12th. But our first fret neck depth is 0.84, and that increases to 0.98 by the 12th. Here's that neck profile at the 1st and 12th fret. You can really just see how skinny the width of the neck is, especially at the 1st fret area. So if you don't have huge hands, you really might like this. However, it does have a nice rounded neck profile to it, so it's not overly thin. Now, moving on to our headstock. Once you take the truss rod cover off, you don't have any Gibson branding. But here's what that cover itself looks like. Got some interesting casting marks or something back there. It doesn't look like our truss rod has been used at all, but you can see the Korina wood grain through the black paint over top of the headstock. I thought that was kind of interesting. There's a similar effect you can see when you get this in the light. The finish definitely kind of sank into the wood. It's a little bit more prevalent in certain areas than others, but hey, it is what it is. As far as blemishes, this thing's really clean, but I did see something right there. It doesn't feel like a ding, but it wasn't a smudge that I could polish off. Moving on to the back, not too much to show you other than the beautiful wood grain and a few light areas of wear. For example, you got a couple of small micro scratches right here that maybe you could buff out on a good machine, but my polishing job did not get rid of them. And right over here, we do have a minuscule ding. It looks like we got a ding over here on the edge as well. So yeah, we got a couple of dings here and there, but you really got to be looking for them. But you've got your strap button down here, and one at the base of the heel. You can see the neck heel construction right there. That's something that makes these guys different. And the back of the neck is all looking good. And we've got our double ring, double line Kluson Gibson Deluxe style tuners and our serial number CS11507. All said and done, it's about right for a Flying V at 7 pounds, 3.2 ounces. So let's go ahead and plug it in and hear how this body wood sounds with the 67 specs. Now that we know all about this first year 67 reissue, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Is it necessarily anything special as far as playing it? Not really. I mean, it feels like most custom shop Flying Vs that I've had, but I'm really glad I had the opportunity to document one of these because this is how you learn about guitars. You buy them, you do the research, you learn the intricacies by tearing it apart, and because of that, I've come out a little bit more knowledgeable on Flying Vs because I didn't realize it wasn't until 2001, so now having the 2002 Flying V Customs being the first year of those in a limited edition run, that kind of makes sense because they were just toying around with doing weird stuff with the 67 custom shops. So that also makes a lot more sense why there's like these weird Korina ones that also exist in that time frame. And then that makes good sense why the Lenny Kravitz signature as well as the Jimi Hendrix Love Drops were also birthed not too long after that. So sometimes it's just that one missing puzzle piece that helps you understand a whole bunch of more stuff. And let's face it, Flying Vs don't get a lot of documentation. To be honest, they're not my favorite either. I'm not a big fan of the 67 style. And the Korina ones, they're just too expensive for most players. Now, you could probably get a nice Epiphone for not too bad of a price. But anyways, we've documented the Flying V-K, as strange as it is. And even though this is a pretty historic piece, as I was telling you earlier, Flying Vs, they're not really my thing for the most part. So I am going to be putting this one up for sale to get something a little bit more apropos to my own collection. Alright, Troglodytes, you can check that out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.